I'm going to be doing a timing belt service and water pump on this 2000 Mazda Millenia. First thing I did was jack up the vehicle, support it with jack stands. I'm going to be taking off, took the wheel off, I'm going to be taking off this splash shield to access the lower crankshaft pulley. Underneath the vehicle, the splash shield has a couple more. Next step is to loosen up the power steering belt tensioner. You got a 17mm bolt here, loosen that up, do not need to take it off, and you have a 10mm bolt here, loosen up, and that'll bring this pulley down, loosen tension. You also have another one for, on top of it there's another 10mm bolt to loosen it up, and that belt will come right off. Next thing I did was I removed the upper radiator hose and just moved it aside over here, and then I'm going to be taking off this tensioner pulley bracket. There is a 12mm bolt here, and there's another one underneath here that I already removed right in the middle of the screen. Next thing I did was I put a jack underneath the oil pan with the piece of wood there, so it doesn't damage the metal oil pan. After I had the engine hoisted up, I removed the upper motor mount and the motor mount bracket. There's a few bolts right there to give me access to the rest of the bolts for the left side of the timing belt cover and the right side of the timing belt cover. There's 9 bolts. Once you have the upper motor mount off and the engine supported, you need to remove the bolt for the crankshaft pulley, bolt on the crankshaft pulley puller, and pull it off. I already loosened it up, and there you go. I just took off the left timing belt cover. I had to take a few bolts off the power steering bracket so I could pry it out the way so I can maneuver the cover out. Next thing you gotta do is make sure the crankshaft pulley sprocket is lined up with that little arrow mark. Cams and these little dots here with this L, and if you see that little notch right there, you want to make sure those things are lined up. On the left or the right side, it's a little bit harder to see. I'm going to make a mark on the cam gear and line it up with something over here so I know once I take the belt off, put the new one on, it's all in time. Alright, you can see I removed the timing belt. I had to remove this pulley because I don't have a tool to get the tensioner off right now. I didn't have enough clearance to get my tool down there. This is the front motor mount that I had to take off because one bolt goes through the water pump there. And I'm just going to work on taking off the water pump. I think there's 7 bolts that hold it in. They're all 10mm and pretty plain sight. You can follow them all the way around. Timing belt kit I bought comes with new pulleys. You always want to replace those. I can feel this one. It doesn't even want to spin. It's going out. Water pump is off. Now you want to take a razor blade, scrape off all this residue and old gasket stuff. Make sure that surface is really clean so you can get a tight seal when the new water pump bolts back on. I'm going to reuse the tensioner, and what I have to do is put it in the vise, and I have this little rod here that's going to go in this hole and this hole once I compress it in it. Alright, I got the tensioner all the way compressed, and I got this little rod going all the way through it. I'm going to remove the idler pulleys next, these 2, and discard them and replace them. Alright, I had the new water pump mounted, the top idler pulley and the lower idler pulley, and the hydraulic tensioner and the tensioner pulley. Ready to install the belt. Alright, the instructions say for installing this timing belt, you want to leave off this pulley. So start with routing the belt with as little slack in it around the crankshaft up to this camshaft, and then route it from the crankshaft over this camshaft sprocket with all the slack in between these 2 cams. and then you want to slide this pulley on and tighten it down to take up that slack. Once the timing belt is installed, you want to make sure that this bolt is torqued down to the correct spec, and then rotate the crankshaft pulley 2 times, and then recheck your timing marks on your camshaft and your crankshaft down there, and if they're dead on, then the timing is right and you can start reassembling it.